Hey, 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 everybody, it's Thursday, and we know that what that means. That's right, it is another edition number 81 of the Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. That is right, I am Allister Carrington, your trusted realtor, feeling better and back with you, alongside our main man, our mortgage guru, our trusted lender, Geoff Lee, our trusted mortgage broker, Geoff Lee, not lender. He doesn't lend us the money. He just gets it for us.
I broker the money.
That's right. Geoff, buddy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I know that you had a little bit of a rough week. So, again, thankful for being healthy.
Yeah.
I know that you might have lost 10 pounds not the normal way, but the old-fashioned way, they could say.
10 pounds I couldn't afford to lose, Geoff. I'm skinny enough as it is, buddy. It was rough, man. It was rough.
Well, two things. I up until the age of I'm gonna say 30, which is probably older, I was about 155 pounds. I'm 55 now, and I topped the scale at 200. So you know what? It will come, Alistair. It
You're
will
carrying
come.
it nicely, my friend.
And when it does, you're gonna be like, oh, why? Why?
I'm just happy to be feeling better, and I'm happy that it's not over Christmas because we are 7 days away. We are 1 week.
I know I was bragging that all my Christmas shopping was done, which it is. And I was like, the only thing I got to do is wrap it, and I still got to wrap it. Now I'm feeling the stress here a little bit. So,
Wrapping's for Christmas Eve, man. That's what I do it. That's what I do the wrapping
yeah,
is I sit down and I have a set of Christmas movies that I love, and I put on those Christmas movies and I wrap. That's what I do.
I actually might take you up on that idea, or I'll make a day a Christmas day and in the evening and do it that way. But
It's nice.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
man.
I'll do that.
Yeah, man. Well, buddy, let's kick it, man. Let's get into it because we've got a lot to talk about. So, as always, let's get started with podcast hottest segment, and that is.
Did you know?
That's right, baby. Did you know? And did you know, Geoff, that there's a very public showdown happening right now between our beloved, well, maybe not ours, but the Premier David Eby and Metro Vancouver mayors, and it actually goes right to the heart of housing and how it gets built in BC.
Do
So,
tell.
yes, so 15 mayors across the region have formally pushed back against the province's housing laws. These are rules, of course, that we spoke about earlier that mandate higher density near transit, allow multiplexes on single family lots, remove public hearings for compliant projects, and impose housing targets on municipalities. So all of the beautiful things that Eby wanted to put in place to create more affordable housing.
Hmm.
Their argument, though, is simple. Local planning is being overridden, community trust is eroding, and the market itself isn't responding the way the province had expected. So from Burnaby to Pitt Meadows to Delta, mayors are saying a one-size-fits-all approach ignores real constraints. Protected farmlands, floodplains, infrastructure limits, parking pressure, and stalled development financing. In some cities, housing targets are technically being met on paper, but nothing is actually getting built. And the Premier's response to all this is he's not backing down. Eby sees these reforms as a cornerstone of his legacy. He argues they're finally opening neighborhoods to families who've been locked out for decades, and credits the policies for easing rents and increasing purpose-built rental supply, even as sales slow and construction pauses. So here's the real takeaway. This isn't just a policy debate, it's an actual power shift. For decades, municipalities controlled zoning almost entirely. The province has now stepped in saying local governments moved too slowly, while affordability spiraled out of reach. The mayors say the province has it has overcorrected and overreacted and created chaos during an already fragile economic cycle. So, Geoff, what are your thoughts? Is this Eby trying to lay his stake in the ground and create his own legacy? Or are the mayors being a little bit too up in their own arms, losing control of what they used to control? What do you think?
You know, what I think is Eby is the same. I don't know if he used that same legacy or this is going to be a mark of my legacy when he was going to end homelessness here in Vancouver.
That was Robertson.
Oh, that was Robertson. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So everyone always wants to throw that word legacy around. So yeah, again, this, like I said, this is news to me. So I'm more curious of what your insight is on this. Did you know? Because I'm a little bit
I
I did not know.
I think it goes the same way as Robertson's claim. I think this is Eby. Again, this is not just policies that he's put out that aren't thought through, much like his beautiful policy of wiping away Airbnbs because it was going to bring all of this product to market and it was going to alleviate affordability and this, that, and the other. And now we know that we're going to face a crunch come FIFA World Cup time where we have a whole bunch of people that come to visit visit our beautiful province and not have anywhere to stay.
Yeah.
Right. I actually agree with these mayors when it comes down to infrastructure. We talked about it, I believe, a few pods ago when we were talking about the one for Port Moody, where Port Moody was going to be affected with these housing plans because of how they're locked between water and land, and they're going to have an issue themselves in meeting these targets. So to again, it's a constant fail I always seen from our government. Maybe not just our government, maybe most governments, but it's still a continuous fail in the fact that we throw out these one size fits all policies when they don't fit all, when every municipality has something different in it, right? To sit there and to say, let's say I let's say here, I live out here in Clayton, right? Already we have a parking issue. Right? If anybody knows out here, it is ridiculous. Like if you park on the street, if you are not home by, let's say, 4:30, you are parking about 2.5, 3 blocks away from your house because of our density. So if you were to, let's say, okay, we're going to add even more housing here in a place where already it barely supports what we have right now, it doesn't work because now what do you do for parking? But Eby would say, well, no big deal. They'll just figure it out. So I believe it's an egotistical legacy thing that Eby's running here, just not thinking things through. And for him to say that he's bringing, and for him to kind of just talk about bringing down rent, that he's brought down rent. He hasn't brought down rent. The reason why rent is dropping is because of housing affordability dropping. That's the correlation, not what he's done. That's the market correcting themselves. So that's my feeling. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah. Well, and as they say, time will tell.
Yeah. I guess so, but then when affordability, when the market starts going up again and things start getting more expensive again, I wonder who he's going to blame when it comes to that one. That'll be the interesting thing. That's when he'll blame the rest of Canada instead of taking it on the chin like he should be. Or when we have people that come to FIFA and they're sleeping outside on Davie Street. Because
I have a feeling with that. The issue is going to be housing, right?
Yeah.
And the issue is again, you'll see capitalism at its finest if you can't find the housing. So So I don't know. This might be actually a time, well, either people are going to apply for Airbnb for a short window of time, which the government allows, or they may recognize and see how this Airbnb has really affected what's going on, say here in Vancouver, or we quite often talk about how it has affected tourist-driven economies, like the Okanagan. Maybe this is a time where that policy or that short-term rental policy gets revisited and gets sharpened up a little bit, right? So I know there are homes out there that, and we've talked about this when that policy was first introduced, is that within a 2-year window, if vacancy rates are at a certain percentage, they can apply for an exemption, the municipality. Maybe coincidentally, when FIFA comes in, probably is going to be in that 2-year kind of time frame. Maybe that's when Vancouver actually applies for that exemption. So that could be it.
If Mr. Eby, if you're listening to this pod at all, please take some of this into thought and maybe revisit in the new year some of the policies that you've decided to drop over the last little bit. Please.
Yeah, not
this,
dropped to forget about, but dropped into how it affects everybody here. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. Well, man, I wanted to talk quickly in Insights with Allister a little bit more. There's been a little bit more development in the Cowichan case. Maybe not the case itself, but just how people and transactions are reacting. And so when we talked about it, when this decision first came out, the big question was going to be simple, right? We said, would uncertainty spill beyond the land itself, right? And so we do have our answer. Since that ruling, right, multiple major real estate and infrastructure deals in Richmond have reportedly stalled or collapsed, not because the land was being claimed, but because confidence in the title certainly its certainty itself has now been shaken. So here's an update. An established Ontario hotel operator had accepted an offer to purchase the Versant Hotel near YVR. Price agreed and the deposit submitted. Days after the court confirmed the Cowichan ruling, that buyer walked away, explicitly citing uncertainty created by the decision. The hotel later sold for significantly less under court supervision. I believe it was $100 million less.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we know that's not theoretical risk. That's capital changing behavior. And so we're also seeing lenders step back. A major private landowner in the title area says financing for a warehouse project was pulled by a lender that had previously financed similar developments without hesitation. A tenant exited, millions already invested are now in limbo. Why? Because lenders could no longer confirm clear indivisible title, a baseline requirement for financing. And that's the shift. So earlier the conversation was about what might happen, and now it's about what is happening. The Cowichan tribes, again, are not claiming private property, but the court's finding that parts of BC's Land Title Act don't apply in the same way to Aboriginal title has introduced precedent risk, and markets respond to precedent risk immediately. So, Geoff, I wanted to ask you, what are you hearing on your end when it comes to the Cowichan land title dispute?
Yeah, I think I actually had a conversation with a client of mine yesterday about not necessarily the Cowichan situation, but the situation as BC as a whole, with how bands and nations are claiming rights to a large majority of British Columbia. And this particular lady, she lived up on Sumas Mountain. She gave me a phone call and says, what should I do? What's your thoughts on it?
I'm hearing this in the media. This is what I'm familiar with the Cowichan situation. And at the end of the day, really, what I said to her was, number one, that Cowichan situation is still a situation that's probably not going to be resolved for the next 10 to 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Is number one. So, number two, until that probably gets resolved, it's probably going to leave a lot of other things in limbo because it's also going to set a precedent.
Mhm.
And if you take a look at British Columbia, and I'm no expert in this at all, in fact, I'm far from even knowledgeable on it, but my understanding here in British Columbia that uh, BC, if you take a look on how it's been deeded, the majority of British Columbia can be deemed as native land.
Yep.
And if that is the case, and say, for example, if that was to go back to the nations and the bands, now you got to really think about what does that really look like, right? How
Yep.
about all the homeowners? Even we'll talk about even in the Cowichan, how about all the homeowners? Now we're going to have a federal lawsuit, right? Because at
Mm.
some point there were homes being sold, there was taxes being paid to the federal government based on those sales of capital gains.
Yep.
Then we're going to have a provincial lawsuit going on because provincially, the property transfer tax is getting paid. I believe that goes provincially, right? So there's going to be lawsuits within that. Then you're also going to have municipal lawsuits because how about the annual property tax that's being paid to the city and all the infrastructure?
Yeah.
Then you're going to, even as I talk about, now you have all this infrastructure that's been built and paid for by taxpayers. How does that get turned over to the bands and the nations? What happens to properties that people own that their current lenders may not lend on native lease land anymore? Now they got to basically go get financing. Now they don't qualify for financing. Now they basically have to sell their house. Now we're in a market where we're at. Like, what are those homes gonna be selling for? And maybe to our premiers, maybe this is how the affordable housing comes into effect.
Right? Yeah.
But if you take a look at the common sense here, you know how much of a shitstorm that is going to create,
100%.
right? And my question to her was, what is really the agenda here? Like, what is really with the agenda? Like, number one, if this was all to go back to nations and bands, or how are you going to all of a sudden handle all this infrastructure? How are you going to? They're not built to handle any of that.
Yeah.
So when you use your common sense, how is our BC government going to allow that to happen? It's not. So what is the agenda here? Right?
See, and it's a good question because that's why I think when this all came out, they put it on the crown to negotiate whether like through litigation, right? They put it on the doorstep of the crown to be the one to kind of deal with this. And essentially that's what it's going to have to be because I understand and I'm all for reconciliation. I get it, right? I get what was done in the past and no, it was not right. So that's where I've always been the belief of it is just going to be a lump sum of money. It can't be a transfer of land back because what you're going to do is erode all confidence in the land title office. There will be because you will never know what you have anymore. Or what you had will not be anymore. And again, that takes away your confidence because it's if you go to buy something next, how do I know now it's not going to switch into something else, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Right? So that's where I've always felt at the end of the day, this is just going to get settled through litigation. This is just going to be a lump sum of money that goes because to your point, you cannot erode confidence in our land title system. And this doesn't just have an effect on on British Columbia. A lot of this will decide what happens province after province after province after province, right?
Well, what is the precedent going to be set, right?
Right, exactly.
Because this is actually going not in provincial court, this is going in Supreme Court.
Right.
So what is that precedent going to set Canada wide?
Right. Right. This, yeah, the decision here, and it's not even just what's happening right in Cowichan here, because there's another one I believe that's going on in Kamloops or Kamloops right now as well, right? And that actually has more, I believe, from what I've been able to read, more of a direct effect on our titles than even does the Cowichan thing going on. So it really is interesting what's going on right now and how it's going to affect not just British Columbia, but the rest of Canada, and how the land title system works throughout Canada. Again, not just in British Columbia. And again, that is why I believe it's just going to end up being litigated, and the sum of money is just going to get paid out because it's too far reaching, right?
Yeah, I could say some very politically incorrect things, which I won't, but it's just, yeah, when is enough enough, right?
I think that's the question that's been going on for quite a bit, and everybody's got their thoughts, and a lot of it too has to do with even where the money goes afterwards. I have my thoughts and opinions on that and how the money's handled, and but I don't, we can leave that for another time.
We will leave that one behind closed doors unless we really want a lot of reaction.
Exactly. Exactly. So, my man, what do you got for us?
You know what? I wanted to talk a little bit, like everything that we talk about kind of slides into what I want to talk about. It's really the psychology of debt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically what that looks like, and really why the psychology of debt makes mortgages feel scary. You take a look at the psychology of debt, and you take a look as far as where our market is right now, even how people are looking at mortgages. And really, when you take a look at the psychology of debt, any number for many of us, you just get anxious about it. But when you're talking about hundreds and thousands of dollars, Allister, the bigger the number can typically trigger the bigger emotional reaction, right?
For sure.
And in that, I even remember when I bought my first house, and I say it's 250, 275, but let's say it was below $300,000. I was like, oh my Lord, like how am I able ever to afford this, right? What do you mean I have a 30-year amortization? I think back in those days you could do a 40-year amortization, but what do you mean I gotta pay this thing off for the next 30 plus years? And that's at the rate that I'm getting it for at that time, right? Yeah. And it's just that whole kind of fear behind it. And people will often say, well, buying a house is the best thing you can ever do, which I firmly believe it is, but it's also one of the most stressful things to do because there's such a huge money exchange. Right? Yeah. Even with the money that you're taking in for a down payment, all your savings that you've saved up, your RRSPs, your first time home savings account, your TFSA, like you're taking all of that money now and sticking it on towards this asset. And it's just like, okay, well, now I have had money, now I don't, but now I have this asset. Like, oh my Lord, like, how am I going to do it? Yeah. And people will talk themselves out of it, right? Because they will just say, hey, maybe it's just cheaper to rent. Maybe it's better to rent, right? Yeah. And there's people out there. I had another conversation with somebody. Everybody has an opinion on something, including what your opinion is. So if you ask enough people, if you do enough Google searching, you're going to find somebody that basically agrees where you're at, right? Yep. And is that necessarily the right thinking? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But again, we've talked about this before. What is your biggest appreciating asset?
It's your home.
CMHC did our study. I always get the numbers mixed up, so I'm going to allow you to remind our listeners what that study meant if you're a homeowner at the age of 33.
If you're a homeowner at the age of 33, your net worth is $440,000. If you are not a homeowner, your net worth is $44,000.
And then that same homeowner at the age of 65,
At 65-ish, your value is 1.4 million. If you do not own a home, your value is 11,900.
so in fact, if you don't own a home, your net worth is less,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So again, statistics show that owning a home is one of your biggest and most appreciation assets, and to be honest, is the largest contributor to your net worth, when you are set to retire, right? But we also have to take a look at family dynamics when it comes to the psychology of debt, because people may have been raised with no money. We take a look at NBA superstars, or sorry, not NBA superstars, NBA players making hundreds of millions of dollars. Statistically, there was a study that was put out on NBA players. I think 70% of NBA players within 5 to 7 years after retirement were bankrupt.
yep, broke.
Take a look at lottery winners, right?
Yep,
You take a look at lottery winners, within 5 years, they've spent all that money
yeah,
because they don't have an upbringing of money.
yeah,
They don't know how to save it. They definitely know how to spend it. But when it also comes down to debt, again, if you were raised in an environment where you don't know how to manage debt, or you've been in debt, your fear is debt because you don't want to be like your mother or your father. And when I use the NBA or lottery winners, you're getting a huge amount of money and spending it. So this is a little bit different when we talk about how your upbringing influences your decisions, right? But again, if you haven't grown up, or you've grown up in debt, or your history has been family debt, that will have an impact on how you will move forward, right? And that's a real thing. And then the other part of it is, it's just like the decisions. There's so many decisions to be made. When you get there, like, okay, now you're there. Am I going to do a 1-year term, a 2-year term? Am I going to do a 10-year term? What kind of amortization am I going to use? My payment's going to be what? Do I do monthly? Do I do biweekly? So again, there are so many options out there. It's just, again, sometimes it's just easier not to do anything, right?
yep.
Market pressures. What are we hearing in the market right now, Allister? Is there anything that we're hearing that makes you want to go out and buy something?
Not a thing.
Right? And again, we take a look at home prices. And yes, we've commented on now is the best time to buy, or one of the best times to buy. We're in a corrected market. But again, you take a look at the average detached home in Fraser Valley. I know you talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think it was like
1.4 million.
1.4
million. Yep.
That's a huge, that number creates anxiety,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
We talked about this in the past when the stress tests came into effect and affected people's borrowing power by 25%. We don't really talk about that as much, but again, that feels like a barrier for a lot of people.
My son is 16 years old, and already we'll sit there and we'll be talking at the dinner table, and he has anxiety over buying a home.
To my son's 22 years old, did buy a home, did buy a pre-sale. We've commented on this before, but he's like, Dad, like, how are you telling me that this $600,000 condo is going to be worth $800,000 in the next 5 years? Like, how are people going to afford that? Right?
Yeah.
And it's a valid point. But again, I said, son, take a look at appreciating, well, take a look at the history of homes here in British Columbia, number one.
Yeah.
We will see a history of anywhere from 4 to 12%, depending on the year, over a period of time. This asset will grow, but unfortunately, we're taking a look at a time where where it's actually depreciating a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was 3% or something to that. Um, but during time, if we hold on to it long enough, it will appreciate. I guarantee you that this home is going to be worth a heck of a lot more in the next 10 years than what you bought it for now. But again, this is the mentality of people, is like, this is just too stressful. What do you mean I'm going to buy this $600,000 home and it's going to be worth X? It's probably cheaper if I'm just going to rent. And in many cases that it is. But remember, owning a home is your biggest piggy bank.
Yep.
Right? Rising cost of living. Everything that we've been buying, with the exception of gas as of late, is expensive.
Yeah.
Right? You take a look at food. Actually, food has gone up since the last reporting cycle. Gas has gone down. But the cost of living is as high as it's ever been. So you know what? You have that pressure on you. And then we have our lovely media and our media outlets. And what do they love to sell?
The gasoline to our fire, baby. They sell fear. That's how they get their clicks, man.
So again, when you have all these things coming at you, in addition to everything that we've talked about, you take a look at the psychology of debt, and yeah, it's just like, okay, this is something that is a real thing. Again, like, and then we have these avoidance behaviors. How many people do you know, Allister, that research everything to the bitter end, get everything that they need to know, and the information that they get is actually a good thing. And hey, yes, this does make sense to do. It makes sense to buy, but they don't do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've talked about this many times in the past too, is just that you assume that you won't qualify. I bring back a client that we worked with. A big six bank told her 3 times that she was not able to qualify. Her realtor referred her over to us. Even before we got 3 minutes into the conversation, it's just like, I'm not going to qualify. Well, how do you know you're not going to qualify? Well, my bank told me this. Well, okay, but what I'm hearing from you is we are going to be able to qualify you. Well, how are you able to do it? And my bank told me 3 times that I was not going to be able to do it. I don't know why, but I'm telling you, we can do this.
Yeah.
So there's a big fear of people. They assume they won't qualify because that's what they've heard from somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And guess what? We qualified this lady. We had this thing done within 7 days. To the point where she didn't even want to believe it, Allister. And to her avoidance behaviors, she started to make excuses why she now didn't want to go with the financing, which made absolutely no sense, right? So again, the psychology of debt,
Yeah.
right? She's a classic example, is like avoidance. I'm not going to do it. Well, and then when you are able to do it, well, oh, really? Like, is this the right thing for me to do? Right? And not really understanding, yes, this is the right thing you want to do. These are what you asked me to, these were your fears. This is the solution. But again, human nature will just basically will bring us to that psychology of debt and that avoidance.
Yeah.
We just talked about renting. Well, it's just going to be cheaper to rent, right? And in some cases, yeah, you're right. It is. But in most cases, if you're going to take a rent a 1-bedroom condo or a 2-bedroom condo, your mortgage payment is very, very similar to what your rent payment's going to be.
Yeah.
Right. In today's rent market, I think it's decreased 5.2% just because, in my opinion, because of the supply of rent that's out there right now. Obviously this is a time that people are renting because it's cheaper, because there's so much inventory that's out there. But I can guarantee you, folks, within the next 2 years, that inventory is going to be slowly going away, and we're going to see a correction in our condo market. Thankfully, for BC renters, you can only increase your rent. I think it's 2 or 3% annually. But I think it was Ontario that just lifted something in favor of the homeowner, where they basically didn't have a cap on what they could rent the increase, or it increased dramatically, and that raised a big, huge, shitstorm within that province, right?
So that's what I was going to say, not to interrupt, but that's what I was going to say is that what people need to understand is that they're just waiting right now to be able to really raise rents again. The reason why a lot of landlords aren't raising rent right now is because it doesn't even make sense, right? It's because of the only 2% that you can raise it. It's like $50 or whatever. So it doesn't make sense. If there is somebody else that comes into office and allows landlords to raise the rent to where it becomes feasible, because landlords are continuing to say the amount of rent that they get doesn't cover mortgage, doesn't cover bills, doesn't cover the repairs on the homes and this, that, and the other. So when they are allowed to bring their rent up to a more satisfactory number to them, they are going to jump on that. And to your point, Geoff, where rent has gone down about 5.2%, that is kind of coincides with the amount that properties have dropped over this past year at 5.3%.
Yeah.
Right. So when we get into that environment where property prices go up, the rents will go up. And I don't believe it's going to only go up by 2%. I believe that people will be able to increase it by quite a bit more. And then again, where does that put you?
Yeah. Well, when I owned properties in Alberta, we didn't have a cap as far as what we could raise the rent. The rent was fair market rent, right?
Yeah.
So if fair market rent was low, that's what your rent was. If fair market rent was high, that's what your rent was, right? So here in British Columbia, we have a huge amount of inventory. If you are a renter, you have a huge amount of options as of right now, right? And that's largely due to the condo situation and the developers and switching from resale to basically rent
Purpose-built rent,
builds, right? So, but again, that time is going to change. Is that going to happen now? No. Is that going to happen within the next 12 months? Slowly. Is that going to happen within the next 24 months? Even more so. And again, as the supply diminishes, obviously that's when we see a correction with everything, right? So some people, depending on who you talk to, believe that's going to happen in the next 12 months. To be honest with you, if you take a look at what most economists were saying, that should have happened last year, right? But again, we get these wonky world events, tariffs that basically get thrown into the mix of how we're doing things, and then all of a sudden produces more fear, produces the psychology of debt, produces just that whole kind of anxiety as far as putting the brakes on, right? We talk about this, Allister, is about what's going to turn this economy around. Not even the economy, but the market around. And it's just to your point, we can raise, like the news that we start hearing, say, for example, we'll just use a realtor as an example. Maybe they sold, like, I think the average realtor, somebody told me the average realtor sells one house a year, and this is based on how many realtors that they're out there. The top 2% realtors, or the top 10%, correct me, are selling 13 houses a year, right? So even if you take a look at an average realtor selling one house a year, which blew me away, I'm up 200% over last year. Well, okay, awesome. Now you're at 3 houses versus 1, right? But again, it's that psychology of what you hear. I'm up 100%. The market now is up 5%. The market is now up 30%. What is the market up from? Is from historical lows. But again, what we hear is the market is up. Now the psychology, or the FOMO, the fear of missing out, then settles in. Right. And this is where you start seeing that snowball coming in, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, you have an avalanche. And it's not because the market has corrected, it's because of the news that you're hearing from. I'm up 100%. Well, you only sold 1 house last year. Congratulations, you're at 2. It's not a significant difference. But again, that whole psychology behind what we hear, this is where we're going to create that correction, right? And again, we've talked about it. We are in a market that has been in correction for, I think, 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
There is going to be a time, and that time is going to come soon, where what we're hearing now is not the market is down, but the market is up.
It's funny because I was reading an article and both Remax and Royal LePage admitted they were off on their projections because they thought that this year was going to be the rebound, right?
Yeah.
Again, nobody expected tariffs to come into play this year. Nobody saw that coming, and that is really at the end of the day one of the biggest driving factors with our market being down. Both Remax and Royal LePage are both projecting that next year that they see the rebound. And the reason that they're saying that is they're starting to see an uptick in sales across all of the provinces. Yes, Ontario and BC are still below the average right now. They have said that we are going to take a little bit longer to catch up to the other provinces. But when you look, they said if you look at Quebec right now, it's on fire. Quebec is extremely busy. Manitoba right now, their real estate is extremely busy, right? So they've said already that next year they feel will be the rebound.
And I just even want to jump on that a little bit. Whenever that rebound is going to be,
Right.
we're rebounding from the worst 4 years that we've had,
Yep.
right? But again, people are not going to take a look on your last 4 years or 10 years to see where that rebound is. I'm going to say the majority of the people is that they just hear we're on the rebound.
Yeah.
Now it's the fear of missing out,
Right.
right? And once we get that consistent messaging, the market is correcting, the market is correcting, the market is rebounding, the market is rebounding. That fear of the psychology now of the fear of missing out then jumps in.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where we start to see that correction.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to why do we get anxious in the first place is because of what we hear, right? For the last 4 years, the market's down, the market's down, the market's down, the market's down. Well, that's what we hear. That's what we believe.
Yeah.
But again, let's do the opposite. The market's up, the market's up. What is it up from? Well, being down a lot, but it's up. Then your fear of missing out comes in. So this is how I feel that things are going to correct when we start hearing positive media. And again, maybe that's when we become less anxious, right?
Yeah.
Take a look in the COVID years when the world was supposed to stop,
Yeah.
right? We had the highest housing prices ever that our country has ever seen.
Yeah.
We had the lowest rates that our country has ever seen. We had the busiest real estate market and the highest appreciation that our country has ever seen. Mind you, take a look at the aftermath of that. Basically, it was a perfect storm that led us to where we're at now. But again, how did that happen? That was, again, the fear of missing out.
Oh yeah, it was everybody saying that this is go and buy something right now because if you don't, you're going to miss your chance. That's what not just realtors were saying, not just what mortgage brokers, the media was legitimately saying. Hurry! Oh, this place. Every article that I saw was like, oh, this house here just sold for this much. Or you watch something on the news, oh, and they put up this house and they say, "This get on there. If you want to buy a home right now, you better go buy it quickly."
Yeah. 25 offers on a house.
Yep.
So again, it's what we hear is what we start to do, right?
Yeah.
And this again is the psychology of debt and what we're hearing,
Yeah.
right? So it's a real thing. So how do you reduce that mortgage anxiety? Again, we just talked about it, is what we start to hear on our media outlets. Once that becomes more positive, our anxiousness will leave, right? I always say, like, when you're in a foreign city, it's stressful trying to find where you need to go to. What do you use? Back in the old days, you pulled out a map. I don't even know how people use those stupid road maps. Like, those things were like a mile long, by the way.
I know.
And you're driving and doing it. But anyways, that's another. But you use Google Road Maps, right?
Yeah.
You have a Google Road Map in your car. Your anxiousness disappears. It just tells you how to get there and how long it's going to take. Imagine if you don't have that roadmap and you're in a foreign city, that creates a lot of anxiety. So get your pre-approvals. Even if you're a year away, even if you're 2 years away, start getting pre-approved now to what you have to, to what you have to do in order to do what you need to do when that time comes, right? Again, we've talked about the number one thing people are Googling, Allister. Do you think it's rates or mortgage calculators?
Right now it's rates.
Right now, it's actually mortgage calculators.
Really?
The number one Google word in the mortgage industry is not mortgage rates, it's mortgage calculators because
Wow.
they're figuring out the scenario planning on it.
Okay.
And anything that you
So hold
tax-
on, just quickly. I don't want to interrupt, but that also then to me makes it sound like people are already planning for the rebound. If you're Googling now more so calculator and you're figuring out your roadmap, so to speak, right, what it's going to cost, instead of now just saying the rates, that means that sounds to me like people now are becoming more comfortable that the rates are where they're at now. And now they're looking at what their payments are going to be because they're planning to buy. So that's already maybe a signal in the shift of people's buying behavior.
I'll have to look at it, but I believe the number one Google search word in the mortgage has always been mortgage calculator.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been rates. Maybe that's the number one thing asked to me aside from
Yeah.
how's the market doing?
Yeah, it actually surprised me as well when I heard that. It was like, that's interesting because no one's ever asked me for a mortgage calculator. But the I won't speak about last year. I'll speak about this year.
Sure.
The number one research word in the mortgage world is mortgage calculator. It's not mortgage rates. Mortgage rates probably a very close second.
Right.
And here's the last thing as far as reducing anxiety, and this is where we'll kind of leave it. You climb Mount Everest. You take one step at a time, right? And before you know it, well, maybe we won't call it Mount Everest because people die on Mount Everest, and it's tough. Let's talk the grouse grind, right? If you guys have ever done the grouse grind, it is a grind. But really, if you just took one step at a time, took a break, took a rest, kept on moving, didn't stop, relaxed. There's some people that will get up that grouse grind in 20, I think it's 24 minutes, which is the record. There's some that will take 4 hours. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you're getting up there slow or you're getting up there fast, you're getting them up the same way, which is one step at a time.
Yeah.
So again, if you are in that psychology of debt, if you are in that anxious, stressed mode, how do you break out of it? Again, connect with a power team, connect with a realtor, connect with a mortgage broker, connect with an accountant, connect with a financial advisor. And you do one step at a time. And before you know it, you're going to be where you need to be. And that's where we'll leave it.
Beautifully said. Wonderfully said. Well, yeah, man. Well, let's end it on that. Again, thank you all for listening to us today. We hope we've empowered you with some of the most valuable information that you can take away to close out this year. As Geoff put it, and as we continue to say, make sure you've got your power team behind you always. Your power team truly is your map to success. You don't have to pull out this big wide thing, do it on your own, and possibly cause a 100-car collision, right? You're able to do it safely and safely and happily when you have a strong power team behind you. So, we always want it to be us. Just if it's not us, just making sure it's somebody that you trust. Yeah. And with that being said, we hope you all have an amazing Christmas. We're going to take next week off and allow you to be with your families because we're going to be with ours. Continue to love, like us, share us, tell everybody you know about us when you're at that Christmas party and when you're opening up those presents. And, when you see a great calendar from a realtor or from a mortgage broker, say, hey, I listened to a podcast with two amazing guys that continually try to double down on delivering the most valuable content that we can give you.
Just give them actually the link to the pod. That'd be the greatest gift.
That's all you got to do. That's right.
Yeah.
Give it instead of gift cards. Give them the link to the pod. They'll say, "Hey, that's the best gift you could have given us."
Exactly.
I love it. Well, that's it. With that being said, stay empowered, stay informed, and most importantly, Geoff,
Stay tuned.
that's right, baby. Peace out and have an amazing Christmas. Talk to you guys later. Bye now.